Hey everyone, I'm Jay and welcome to Intro to Python Programming Lab 2.6. This is going to be the hardest one in the second module series. We're going to be taking some couple of variables and outputting them and actually doing some formatting, some string formatting, some number formatting, I guess. And so I'm going to be showing you multiple different ways to do that same formatting, and for your lab, what you turn in, you're free to use whichever one you think works the best or whichever one is your favorite. You don't have to output nearly as much as I'm going to. I'm going to basically be doing things 5 times over. I don't want you to be doing them one way. I do want you to do multiple outputs, but you can do them all the same way. Okay, you don't have to do them all different ways like I'm going to do. I'm just showing you there is more than one way to skin a cat or to output some text in Python. All right, so here's our instructions. We're going to make a new file. We're going to create two variables. One's a string and one's a decimal, a float. We're going to output the string with a string constant. Now, a string constant is just a we're just actually going to put text in a string and we're going to add our variable to it and output it all on one line together. Something that's very commonly done in programming and lots of programs, right? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that number and we're going to output the number along with some text. And then we're going to shorten that number, and I'm calling it countdown. It's not really counting down. We're just cutting off the end of that number each time. And we will see there's an error. It's an error. I'll talk about ways to fix it. But when we cut off the 5 and we output, it's going to round. And so we're not going to see that 4. It's going to round up to 0.1235 on that one because rounding is automatic. So I am at the very end, I'm going to show you a way to correct that. It is a bit more difficult. It does require some actual math. We have to import the math library in order to do some math. All right, we'll have a look at that when we get there. All right, and then last, we're going to combine the variable and then a string and then that number, and we're going to format that number and do that 5 times as well. All right, so let's get to it. All right, here we have my finished code, and I'll talk about each line as we look at it. I have my comments at the top, right? No big deal there. I'm declaring my two variables here, a string hello world var HW and a float number, floating point, countdown var countdown 0.12345. Okay. So first we're just going to output the hello world part, and I've done this 6 different ways actually. The first way, I have my string constant here. It's constant. It's not going to change unless I manually change the program. So it's not even a variable, right? There is a type of variable called a constant. We're not doing that right now. Right, so I just have my string here. It says the value of var HW is, and then I'm adding var HW. Don't forget to put the period at the end. Right? If you need a period at the end, you have to put that in there. Okay, and that's going to output this line right here. Notice there's that extra space before the period, and that's because I'm using the comma separated values here. And when you print with the comma separated values, Python is very cool. It just, adds those spaces in every time so you don't have to. The downside is if there's a case where you don't want to, like right here where we have the period at the end, you're going to get the space anyway, and it's going to be all buggered up. Right? So next one, I'm using the string concatenator, where I'm just adding strings together, or concatenating, which means putting strings together. Okay, remember that word. You'll use it sparingly forever. And this one doesn't automatically add those spaces. So I'm adding the space myself where I need it right here, and then I get this output right here. Perfect output. The next option is I'm doing the exact same thing, except I'm casting the string as a string, just in case that variable wasn't actually a string. Because I'm concatenating strings, I need to cast it as a string. So if RHW happened to have a number in it, this line would have an error, Python would crash, because you can't concatenate a string with a number with another string at the end. No can do. So I've casted this to be, I've explicitly stated we're going to make this a string no matter what it is, and then we can concatenate those. All right, so that's a safety feature for us. It's kind of error proofing our code, right? If we were taking user input for this value, we would absolutely want to do that, as I will say a million times, many times in the future. You can never trust user input. Users are a very weak point in coding. You can't trust their input. Some of them sometimes are going to type the wrong thing. So this would prevent that if we were doing user input. Moving on to the next line, I'm using the F format. This is something that is somewhat unique to, or I think completely unique to Python. We put the F in front of our string, and then we use curly braces wrapped around our variable, and it's going to stick our variable in this place right here. Right, so this is definitely the quickest and easiest way to do this. However, it is pretty unique to Python, so you won't see me particularly using it very much. My probably preferred method is either to go with the commas or the concatenation with the cast variable. I don't like to use Python specific things if I can avoid it, just because I code in more than just Python. So, but you have that available to you if you want it. All right. And the next one, we're using the .format function. So I have a string, and then I put curly braces in here, and I've said, hey, format, stick this value into the first curly brace that you see. Okay. I could have multiples, and we'll get to that in a little bit. This is going to be plugged into the first one that I see. And then I'm taking all of that and I'm concatenating this period at the very end. Okay, I could have put the period in here and just plugged the bar in there anyway, but I wanted you to see that you can do both at the same time. You can format it and you can also concatenate. And then the last one, this one is more generally speaking, right? A lot of other programming languages do their formatting this way, where I have my string, and then I've used, instead of a curly brace, I used a % with an S. That means there's going to be a string here, right? If I had a number, it would be a %D. I could have a %F for a floating point number. There's a few other things that I'm less familiar with. It's generally numbers and letters for me. However, this is much more common. You do this in a number of other languages. And then the way that you do it in Python is a little bit different at the end. I have my % and as a % function, and I put my variable in here. You can also have multiples. They'll just go in the order, okay? And you'll do it this way. This one is very common. However, I don't do it that often. But you'll see me do this sometimes as well. All right, so this is all of these are going to be the output, with the exception of the first one, because we get that automatic added space. So the first one puts this space right here that we don't want. All the other ones have avoided that and given me the same perfect output every time. Okay, but I wanted to show you this because although in a previous lab I said this is definitely the easiest way to do it, easiest doesn't always mean it is perfect in every situation. Okay, so moving on to the next series of outputs we have, We have our countdown variable. Remember, that's 0.12345. And I'm going to output that, and I'm going to use the format, but I'm going to give it a method to format right here. Okay, and I've commented out this one because of the first one I've just output using that simple method. So the simple method would be have my string, and I put my colon in here because I want it to be in, or my colon because I want it to be in the output, and then a comma, and then my variable to add to that, and it's going to output like this. Okay, so this is great if we want the entire number, but we also want to output just the other numbers because we want to simulate a countdown. Okay, it's not a real countdown. We would do math. We would just subtract 1 every time. We would do a countdown, but I'm displaying formatting today, so we're going to format this number. All right, so moving on to the next line, we have our string, and we put curly braces in here, and we've said, hey, this is going to be a thing that we want to format. And the way we do the format, I am going to link to some online instructions so you can get some further reading on this. We have a colon, a 0.4, that would be 4 decimal places for this number. That's what the F stands for. You don't have to memorize what these are, but you do have to know how to look them up for future reference. So I'm going to give you a link to further reading on that. Then I have my dot format function, put the variable in here. What this is going to do is going to format the var countdown, stick it in this box, and it's going to give me only 4 decimal places. And you'll notice that this first one is incorrect. We have 0.1235 instead of 1234. And the reason for that is because although it is going to give me 4 decimal places, it is going to give me a 4 decimal place precision, and it's going to round for me, and since the number afterwards is 5, rounding 5 and up, you round up, it outputs 1235. Okay, so that kind of breaks our countdown, but I will show you at the end a way to correct that. You're going to have to use some math, and we'll see that in a few minutes. Okay, so for this, I do not have many methods to show you. It's one method over and over again. We're going 4 decimal places, then 3 decimal places on the next line, 2 decimal places on the next line, 1 decimal place on the next line, and 0 decimal places on the last line. And when we get to 0 decimal places, we just have the 0 at the end. And that's the big, the countdown is over. Yay. Okay. Then I have the final countdown where I'm taking the var HW, the hello world, and adding that to some text and then putting the countdown at the end to really just combine these two things together. And I've gone and done different methods with the var HW portion. However, the countdown is pretty much the same as the previous one. Okay, so first line, I've used that %s method. And then I've added the % here. So I have the format of the string, which is going to format the var countdown into these curly braces. Since we only have one set of curly braces, the HW is the %s. We put the % over here. These are two things happening together. They don't mess each other up because they operate differently. The format uses these curly braces, and the %1 uses the %. Okay, so they're not going to mess each other up, and you can combine both into one line. Okay, so that's going to give us the 5 decimal places. Moving on to the next line, for 4 decimal places, I'm doing the number part exactly the same, but then I'm using the var HW with the comma separated method. That's going to give me that incorrect, that's going to give me that extra space that I don't actually want. Okay. So now I have 2 errors on this line. I have the extra space, and I have the rounded 4, which gives me the wrong number. Okay. Moving on to the next line with the 3 decimal places. Okay. Still doing the same thing with the number, but then I'm using the var HW with the concatenation in the beginning. That's going to give me this output here. This is the right output with the correct amount spaces that I want. Okay, so we can do that. We're concatenating on one end of the string and we're formatting on the other end. Okay, you can combine those as well. They don't interfere with each other. Right. Next, I'm going to format both variables in together. Okay, so I have the dot format, and then I have a curly brace for the number and a curly brace for the var HW. These two curly braces, the format, you can have as many curly braces as you want in there for as many formatting insertions, let's call them. Just remember that they are going to be in order from left to right. Okay, so var HW comes first. It gets stuck into this curly brace, and then I have a comma to separate all of my function parameters, and then the next one is going to get inserted into the next one. Now what if you want to do this, but you don't necessarily want to order them always left to right? If you put them out of order because it just happens to be easier for you to program it that way, or because this function is already written for you by somebody else, you can number them. Okay, so I have reversed the order in the next line, and I put my variable countdown, my number first, and my hello world string last, and I put the number order into the curly braces. Now the HW, it doesn't have any special formatting, so I just have the number in it. For the countdown number, it does have special formatting, so I put the 0 number in front of its formatting. Okay, and that's going to take care of this one right here, this line in the output. So this is all of the ways that you could do this last one. I recommend either of these last two. Either you can just do them from left to right, or you can custom number them. If you custom number them, you can still do them from left to right. You can just put the numbers in anyway, and then organize them properly. That would be the most robust way to do it for sure. Okay, so this is all of them. Now, last, we're going to do this. What about that number 4? Right, so let's have a look at number 4. Let's rerun my code, and you can see now I get the 0.1234. Now what I had to do is import a few operations going on right here. I had to import the math library in order to get this function right here, the truncate, math.trunc or truncate, and we'll see what's that's going to happen in a moment. Right? We're going to make a number. We're going to do 10 to the 4th power, okay? And then we're going to multiply our countdown variable times 10 to the 4th. That way we can move that decimal point. Okay, we want to move that decimal point 4 places. Then we want to truncate. Truncate means cut off the decimal. Okay, make it an integer. And then we're going to move the decimal point back again by dividing by the factor. Okay, so this is like some elementary school math that you might have done, right? You might have moved decimal places by multiplying by a factor of 10, and then we're going to cut off the decimal place. We're going to cut off that 5, then we're going to move the decimal point back, and then we're going to print that out. I could have broken this down into multiple steps for you to see those multiple steps, but I think I've got that across now. If we were writing a function that was going to be used for a long time to do this countdown or this type of countdown, we would actually put this factoring on every single line, because we would, if we didn't want to round every time, we would have to do this 5 times. We'd have to do by a factor of 10 to the 5th, and a factor of 10 to the 4th, and 10 to the 3rd, and 10 to the 2, and 10 to the 1. Okay, and 10 to the 0 as well. If we were really being overly robust with this, we would do all of the potential factors and we would truncate at each spot. So I'm showing you the 1 to do that number 4 there. You don't have to do this part for your assignment to turn into me. All right, that's above and beyond for this assignment. You don't have to use every single formatting method. Pick one that you like and give me the output. Okay, that's it. Just pick one that you like, and then I want you to give me, actually, you're going to give me this output in the end, with the exception of that space right there. And yours is going to be correct because you're going to do one of these. Okay, so this will be the output that you'll give me. Just pick your favorite formatting method for each of the places that you have to format. There's absolutely no need to do them 5 different ways. It was even confusing for me. I had to go very slow to do these ones to make sure that I was doing 5 different ways for you. All right, so hopefully that helped you out with 5 different ways of formatting for each one of these operations. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.